I just finished making a game in 1 month's time, and it just came to my attention that I've been working on games seriously for about 6 months now. I recently started this challenge so I can further my learning in game development to make a new game every month, and the fact that it's been 6 months since I started is absolutely crazy to me. It feels like a few weeks. The most recent game I've made has been a crazy roller coaster, and there's no way that I could have made that 6 months ago. But instead of walking you through that project, I figured why not recap my entire 6 months and try to give you something I learned in each month, maybe give you a little bit more to take away from this entire journey I've been on. Before we even talk about that though, let's establish a few things. Game development is hard. There's a reason why it takes years to make a single game. In fact, there are entire studios with endless budgets, endless resources, and endless talent that still make trash games. As an indie developer, you rely on an artistic flair, personality, or maybe even some sort of mastery you might have in a different field to kind of make your game stand out. And I have none of those things. So beginning to learn for me has been a journey. So throughout the years, I've used so many different game engines to try to learn game dev. I swear I've used at least 90% of the engines that are out there on the market, and none of them really stuck with me. A lot of the times it's not a different engine that you need, it's a different motivation, or maybe even a different mentality that you need. And for me, that's when my journey into game dev seriously really began. I decided to start investing in the dream. So at the time, I was using an engine called Construct 2. Construct 2 is a 2D engine that helps you make really small drag and drop coding games on the HTML5 platform. It's really easy to use, it's really cool. And I was using the free version of that program, and I decided I really wanted to finish this game. So I invested in myself. Instead of buying the monthly, I decided to buy the yearly subscription to this program just to make sure that I would finish this game. A few months later, I quit. Now, it wasn't intentional. I went back to the project a few times, but once you lose that fire, sometimes it can be very hard to pick it back up and continue working on the game. After trying so many times to restart the project, I ended up emailing the team at Construct to see if I can get a refund for the subscription, and they sent me my money back, and shout out to them, I appreciate it. A few months later after that, I was sick in the house, and I decided to start making games again. And once again, I invested even more. Instead of buying a subscription to a game engine, I decided to buy a brand new PC. I didn't spend the most money in the world, but just enough. I said that, hey, I'm doing this, I'm taking this seriously, and this money is the first step of commitment. Yes, it's a risk, but there's literally no point in having money if you can't invest in yourself or the things that you actually want to do. So that will be my lesson for month one. Month one, invest in yourself. In month two, this is when I really started to pay attention to how I was going to get better, and I really started the game a week challenge to really force myself to learn the habit of finishing projects. With my first game in the game a week challenge, I was able to finish it in however a terrible state it was. The second game was a failure, and I really didn't want to continue that trend, so I decided to invest further and kind of go deeper into game a week and do Ludum Dare. Ludum Dare is a game jam that comes around once or twice a year in which you can make a game in 48 hours or 72 hours. I think for me in month two, I started to really pay attention to the fact that I was doing this in a bubble. I hadn't uploaded the videos yet, I hadn't showed my friends and my family, so I really wanted to enter this contest to start showing people my games. And that would be my lesson for part two. To help make it real, show it to people. Show people your games, show people your art, but most importantly, you want to try to put yourself out there in some way. Whether that may be posting it online to a brand new page. Whatever it is, try your best to make it real by posting it in some form or fashion. And I'll be honest, it was probably the best decision I've made in my entire game dev journey so far, because entering Ludum Dare is when I first experienced the avatar state. I entered the flow state of just making games without thinking. and really working really hard at one goal and learning if I really enjoyed what I was really doing. Most importantly, I got people to actually play my game and give me feedback. It was really important for me to put it out there and have someone play it and explain to me what they felt while playing my game. After Ludum Dare, my next game was a lot more ambitious. Of course, my Ludum Dare game did have a lot of flaws in it, but so does everybody else's. All these games are made in 48 hours. My third game was way more ambitious, and it was way more depth to the game in terms of what I wanted to do. My third game was something that I really wanted to play or I thought was really cool, and I tried my best to put it together in a week. Now, I was successful in releasing the game, but I say I failed now in hindsight because you're making games for other people to play. My lesson for month 3 would be focus on other people's experience. Yes, you are making a personal project. Yes, you love what you're making. However, you need to consider how other people might take what you are making. That does not mean compromise your vision, but acknowledge that you are trying to share your vision with someone else, and you need to do a good job of trying to explain that. My game for month 3 had a ton of bugs that basically made the game unplayable, and while I posted it on itch.io and people were playing it, I did have a lot of comments that people left that made me feel terrible because clearly they were trying to support me, but they just couldn't because of the way the game was and the state that it existed in. It's not a great feeling, but that is a big lesson that I learned, that yes, you can excuse the flaws in your baby, but other people may not be able to do so. In month 3, I also worked on another game during that week, which was sort of an endless runner type game thing that I was working on a little bit, and I decided in month 4 I would turn that into a long-term project. See, I had ended Game a Week and I wanted to start working on a longer term project, so I took one of the projects from Game a Week to sort of expand out into a full-length game. This time I was working on it with the intent to finish in maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something along those lines. In this month I really wanted to spend some time making a good game. I was tired of making the buggy games that were unplayable basically. I wanted to make a longer term game that was actually good, that represented like what I liked. And I spent a lot of time in that month just working on that game, and I started to realize, how can I make a good game if I'm not good at making games yet? It just hit me. So I spent so much time in month 4 really trying to understand how I could make a better game and learning a lot about game theory and things like that to really put together a higher quality game. So for month 4, I would say do what you can. Stop trying to stretch yourself thin or reach above your means. Of course, don't give up, but do what you can do to the best of your ability. That's all you're really supposed to focus on. Stop chasing the idea of perfection and trying to be perfect with your project. Make what you can make the best that you can make it. It's funny I say that because month 5 is very similar. Month 5 is when I released a video about game ideas, and I started to understand that the game ideas I were working on would just be too much for me at the state that I was at. So I decided to work on sort of a 2D platformer action game in the vein of like a Souls-like, and it was really cool. I was really proud to work on this project, and I knew that if I just spent a lot of time on it, I could make something cool within my abilities. But as I sort of started to work on it, I started to pull features out. Some features were not going to be able to make it into the game. I put so much effort into how cool this game could be that when I actually started to narrow it down to what it was, I was no longer passionate about it. I had shrunk the game down so much in order to try to finish it that I no longer was passionate about what I was making. So for month 5, I would definitely say I learned, make something that you are passionate about, make something that you're actually enjoying, and if you have to scope your game down, make sure when you do that, you're still going to be passionate about the smaller version of that game. And finally, this leads me to where I am now, month 6. Month 6 is the first finished game in the series of Game a Month, and I'm extremely proud to say that I finished this game in 1 month. I cheated a little bit, just a little bit. I ended up taking a few extra days with 4th of July and other things going on. It did take some extra time, even this video, but I was able to do it in maybe a month and 2 days. For this game, I learned the dangers of over-planning. When you over-plan your game, sometimes you end up not having enough time to actually work on what you need to work on. But I did not need to go into the detail that I did, into the weeds like I did. I will say there is something to just opening an engine and working that feels great. I spent so much time planning this game and make sure I was able to finish the project, but it was not to the level that I wanted it to. Things like polish, performance, music, sound effects, all of these things took a back seat because they weren't a part of the plan. All of these things make a huge difference in how the game actually feels, and you end up wasting a lot of time on other things if you can't polish what you already have. It really makes me feel like a game about cubes that's really polished might be a lot better than some AAA games. Overall, this game that I worked on, the total idea was a top-down Zelda game in the vein of classic Zelda, but I wanted to throw in some ideas from the Quintet trilogy, namely Soul Blazer, and take things like the ability to strafe your movement, the ability to have kind of RPG mechanics to your character, leveling up and things like that. The game has a fire orb, an ice orb, and a wind orb. Each one modifies your attack abilities, and you can use them to fight enemies and pick them up off the ground, throw them, and they all have different effects. I had multiple types of enemies for this game: a monkey enemy, a bat, and then a worm, and I had multiple versions of each. But because I spent so much time planning how things would work, I did not have enough time to implement all the models that I had, so therefore I spent a lot of time modeling things that I didn't even use. I really would say this game has about 2 weeks worth of content in it. Overall, you load into the map, you select the orb that you may want to travel with, you explore the map, and you're looking for these large orbs. When you find them, you have to collect them the same way that you collect an item from the ground, and then take them back to the beginning and place them on a pedestal or an altar. When you place them there, it sort of suspends above, and then you can go back down and look for new orbs. When you find 5 orbs, the game is over, you win. Very simple game. There are different areas. There's a mountainous region, there's a lava region, there's a cave area, there's a sort of water area. I put little different things in. I was not able to polish them the way I wanted to and give them different characteristics, but visually they are there. And overall, I really just learned that I would be better off with one area that felt really good than 4 or 5 areas that don't feel really that great at all. It sounds common sense when I say it like that, but when you're planning the game out, it's not that clear. Now that I'm really working on games, I really want to apologize to all the game developers I've complained about in the past. I learned working on this game in month 6 the importance of polish. Yes, you're learning and there's gonna be bugs, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's also important to have it be somewhat good feeling, and these things are really important. So the importance of polish is something that I want to focus on for my next game for the following month. And yeah, stay tuned. I definitely want to surprise you guys with this idea. I'm extremely excited about it. I'm so excited, in fact, that I want to kind of just drop the game a month and just work on this game for forever. But I'm not going to. So with everything that I've learned in the past 6 months of game development, going into my next game, you would think I would learn from those things and sort of implement them into the next game. And I'm gonna try my best to make a simple game, very relaxed game, and just try to polish for my next game. And speaking of blocks, this next game I'm gonna make a variation on, but knowing me, I'm gonna add 100 different mechanics to it. I will be keeping it under wraps until the next video, when I will go in depth about why I chose this game. So hopefully you guys will show up there. This has been the 6 months in game development. I appreciate you guys.